It's good, guys. The Novice, The Boys Season 2. Right, I'll get straight into it. I like this season. And the reason why I like it, but still have some issues, is because, in a sentence, it's a season that goes deeper, but still has some missed opportunities here and there. What do I mean by that? That phrase, deeper season, missed opportunities. I think they're really strong individual things, but there's still things that weren't as well done as they could have been, and they didn't stick the landing on certain things here and there at the same time. But I liked it more than I didn't like it. So I'm going to go example by example, just explaining what I mean by that. First off, Stormfront, a great addition to the season. Her and Homelander, are two of the MVPs. Is definitely, without those two, this would be a very different show in terms of quality. The actor who plays Stormfront, Aya Cash, I wish her all the best in terms of her future career. I hope she gets great roles and thrillers and whatever she decides to do, dramas. I'm gonna try and follow her and see what else she does, because she is such a great actress in this role. She has the perfect. She plays it perfectly in terms of her public persona versus how she really is behind closed doors, and it felt like a commentary. The reason why I think they went deeper with the show in this season through her is because I felt like her character was a commentary specifically on virtue signaling as far as the industry is concerned. How like I mentioned, with her public persona, she has one way you perceive her and another way you perceive her as an audience member behind closed doors. And if we were living in this world, we wouldn't know that she was this way at all, because she plays it so well, and because they've written a character who, to draw a parallel, sometimes people care more about money than they care about their integrity. And she's a great example of that, because the industry or Vault has marketed her a certain type of way when she's really not what you think she is, right? Homelander, oh, by the way, with Stormfront, I don't really think there was any missed opportunities with her specifically. You could argue maybe, I wish there were soup groups that they explored, which maybe had attitudes to her and how you deal with people like that in such a world. But they touch on it. Her story is enough to fill that blank about what it would be like for someone with her ideas on the world having that kind of power and that level of power. So it's good enough for me, and she's great. I wouldn't mind if she returned. Homelander, great character again. Still an MVP along with Stormfront. What I like about him, and the reason why I think they go deeper with him in this season, is because I truly understand now that he is a sociopath. He doesn't understand, and he has a basic misunderstanding of empathy and love compared to most healthy-minded people. I'll give two examples of that without getting too specific, because I don't want to give away anything. Episode 4, there's something dedicated to Homelander, a certain storyline about an old attachment of his, an old personal attachment, and you realize the only reason why he would do something like this by choice is because in his mind he still thinks the idea of how he perceived that old attachment was reality, when it clearly wasn't. They made it clear in season 1 that no, this, your idea was not the same as how the opposite saw you. Not at all. It's not the same. But he doesn't seem to know that in his mind, because of how he does a certain thing in episode 4 that is cringy. It's cringy as heck to anyone but him, apparently. And they reinforce that even more. You can argue even more strongly through his relationship with his son. which isn't a spoiler. This is a non-spoiler review, by the way, but that isn't a spoiler because we know that from season 1 that he has a son. I do believe they write it nuanced enough, his relationship in this season with his son, to make me believe that he does care about him. But his idea of like caring for him, his idea of being a loving father, being the father that he never had, still has a twisted logic to it. There's certain scenes where you'll laugh out loud, you'll feel a bit bad, you'll feel a bit angry with him, to say the least. But then they all make me realize, looking back, that, oh, it's because he's still doing that thing where he doesn't understand, because of his upbringing and his lack of like true parenting. He doesn't understand that this is not how you raise your son. You don't raise your son to have this certain mentality. You don't raise the son with this certain twisted logic that you have. And there's still things in this show that make me believe that, oh my god, his choice of girlfriend, even, this is an obvious example. If he keeps going on the way he goes on, there's no limit to like the horrible things he could do. All because he doesn't think he's being horrible. He's just being him. Crazy. The showrunners, you did well with him and Stormfront. What else do I think they go deeper with? They go deeper with the boys and with the character backstories. You learn a bit more about them in the past. I didn't like it at first, especially with Butcher's character. And you learn a bit more about him. But I came to appreciate it because now it's made me understand that as far as this show's concerned, they're trying to make you see no one is perfect. No one is like a solid good person, bad person. Everyone messes up and makes mistakes, has regrets. And they reinforce that through this show, right? So I appreciated that. I just think there's a missed opportunity because of, funny enough, M's character, Mother's Milk. He's a guy who, speaking of emotional anchors, when it comes to the boys as a group, they're trying to remind you that certain people are emotional anchors for other people, right? But there's a conversation that Mother's Milk has with Butcher, and he's telling him, so-and-so, this person is your canary, your emotional anchor. Without them around, how are you going to know when you've gone too far, when you've pushed beyond the limit? And I couldn't stop thinking to myself, watching this show, even a bit after that point, wait, aren't you the canary for everyone? You're always the guy who knows how to calm people down to make sure that the buttons don't get pressed and they don't go apeshit in a certain moment. I've seen him do this with Kimiko, with Frenchie, in the episodes, with Butcher, with, I want to say with Hughie, probably, probably with Hughie, even with Starlight a little bit. Actually, there's an episode and he has a moment with Starlight, and Starlight wants to do something, and he's telling her, wait, you have to hold off. Look, be smart, just calm, stay calm. So and so's gonna get helped. He always knows like how to de-escalate people on a personal level, like calm them down. But for some reason they don't make it seem like he is the nurturing type. That is clear. But they make it seem like someone else is the canary for the group, and that doesn't make sense to me. Also, I just want to understand, why don't they make it clear what he brings to the group distinctly? Butcher's the leader. Frenchie is like the expert. He has certain connections in the underworld. He's an expert in using certain weapons. Kimiko's the soup. Hughie is I don't know. Hughie's Hughie. Mother's Milk, what is his distinct like skill that he brings to the boys? I don't understand what that is, and I wish they spent more time on fleshing him out as a character. Speaking of backstories, so that's like a missed opportunity as far as that is concerned with the boys themselves as a group. Another thing I like about this show that shows that they've gone deeper, Stan Edgar's character. He's a guy played by Giancarlo Esposito. Gustavo, Los Pollos Hermanos. I love him. He's a character that reminds me that just like the real world industry, people they will tolerate certain things as long as the green comes, as long as the banknotes come. They mentioned in a specific conversation in the season, the reason I do what I do is because that's the only card you can play in this world. This world is a world of compromise. You can't assume that everyone has the same understanding with you about living the best quality life you can, about doing the best you can do. So you have to, be political about it, because business is political. And he reminds someone of that in a conversation in this season. And it just shows you that to him, it's not just about being a villain. It really is about, again, playing with the best cards you know, which is strategy, being, making compromises, indulging certain people within the seven for the sake of Volt's reputation, doing good PR. He's the guy for it. Shout out to Stan Edgar. I hope to see more from him because he's a sneaky guy, just like Gus. And I love the actor, of course. What else do I like about this show? I like that the obvious parallels. This is a season 1 thing, but they still troll people when it comes to the commentary on superhero culture, as if it were like celebrity culture, and how they. I spoke about virtue signaling with Stormfront. Specifically virtue signaling. This show, there's a storyline with Maeve that is so cringy because they just squeeze it. I feel so bad for her, but at the same time, I understand why they'll do something like that. One, because the way it happened was a very personal vendetta from someone else, but specifically, the real world industry does that. They try to make it seem, oh guys, look, we care so much. We're Disney. We care so much about, Black Lives Matter. We want to take the Song of the South off of Disney Plus, but at the same time, you want to film Mulan near concentration camps because we got Muslims in concentration camps. That's not a sexy kind of oppression. Black Lives Matter. That's a sexy kind of oppression. So. Yeah, let's support that by taking certain episodes of, I don't know, so-and-so show, this old show from, this old movie from back in the day off of our streaming services. But we don't really give a damn. Well, we're pulling a Stan Edgar when it comes to that money, that box office. And they show that through Maeve's character, that virtue signaling. We care so much, but we don't really care. We care about money and PR. And you see that in other ways too. They make kind of trollish comments about how people perceive feminism today, like real feminism versus the idea like woke culture. I already mentioned with Disney, like their strategies, and that's another way that this show just reminds you: if superheroes existed in real life, they'll be just like this, exactly like this. And then lastly, another thing that I really like as far as the positives go is the gore. I like the gore, and what it reminds you of watching the show is, one, that you need things that are offensively kind of violent, that show real bloods, that show kind of the gruesome consequences if you were to face someone like a Soup. But just in general, this type of world is a savage world. And when you watch so many action movies in the modern day, whether it's just showing digital blood, which they do in The Boys, or they show, whether they show like stuff, like a certain action scene in the Fast and Furious movie, people take a lot of damage, but they don't really get hurt, and there's not real consequences to their actions. People watch John Wick 3, he falls off a building and survives, no one questions it, because they love that character so much. But you need consequences to certain violent actions, or people get desensitized. So in a way, watching PG stuff compared to watching The Boys, where you're deliberately offended by some of the physical mutilations and so on, that in a way is probably slightly better for you, because you just need to be reminded that in the real world, when people's necks get snapped when people get slashed open, not only does it hurt, but it's a horrible way to go out. I love that. It's such a better way to me to do storytelling than only prioritizing PG. PG is important, of course. You want more people to come to theaters, all that stuff. But I prefer if it was more of a mix. I think The Boys reminds you of that by, you know, being so violent. To me, it's not gratuitously violent. That's the thing. It's showing you, it's going deeper into this world with certain scenes by showing you that the real knit and grits behind the scenes is very gruesome. But this is like average life when you're doing there's a certain member of the Seven that does like certain Black Ops missions. I'm thinking of him, and you see him every so often do these things, and I just feel like, you know, this is probably what like SEAL teams do. Obviously not to that extent. This is over the top. These are superheroes, but I bet you this is what, like, you know, mercs do, SEAL teams do, Navy, top people do all the time. But they do those things in a world that we live in, and we just, on the other hand, we perceive it as just something that's peripheral, that's just there in the background. No, these things happen. Violent things happen. We need to accept that. I love that about this show. And the only thing that I think is a missed opportunity as far as that's concerned is the fact that I feel like they could have even gone deeper with it, with the gore, and also show, because people have PTSD, but they never really explore how it would stop them from behaving. Like Hughie is a great example of that. Going back to season 1, I never feel with certain scenes that he's stopped from doing things later on. I just feel like it's more of a weighing down on him feeling. I just said like a bland level of like bitterness, which doesn't seem right to me if you have something like PTSD. And then lastly, as far as the positives, I like that there's no, I'm looking at my notes by the way, I like that there's no such thing in this show as good guys, truly. The last episode is great. It's probably the best part of the season. That, episode 3, I like episode 6. Something reminded me that there's no such thing as like a purely good person in this world, in this show, with all of these characters. Butcher does something that makes me think, or he's about to do something in the last episode, and it made me think, wow, he doesn't give a damn. Of course, Homelander and Stormfront, they do things that are like beyond reprehensible casually. It's not it's not even like a big event, stuff that's casual. Where can I go? Black Noir, Stan Edgar, using other people. There's so many people, whether it's on the perceived bad side of the line or the perceived good side. Hughie, Frenchie, Chemical, The Boys, they do things, they take part in things that remind you, no one has completely clean hands in this world. Funny, just like the episode in season 1 when he kills Translucent. It made me think of that. And I really like that about the show. It's trying to tell you that in a world where stuff like this would exist, you wouldn't have Spider-Man, you wouldn't have the Supermans, you wouldn't have the Batmans. There would probably be like 1% of the population, whether the vigilantes against superheroes or superheroes themselves, like a Starlight, and then the rest of them would be like this morally ambiguous grey, where maybe they might do some good things sometimes, but for the most part they care about their own agenda, and that can be really bad or just not the best thing. I like that about the show. As far as, I'm going to get into the flaws now and the missed opportunities more specifically. I feel like with the Deep and A-Train, they have certain character arcs in this show that are missed opportunity to me, because I feel that they were just exploring, especially with the Deep, it felt like it was just satire for satire's sake. He has a certain storyline this season, and I feel like they don't comment enough on cancel culture, and that would have been really interesting for him if they did. That it starts to seem like an interesting idea, the idea of him being in the situation he is, But based on how it ends, it just felt like they were trying to be more comedic than do a serious commentary. And that's something I appreciate about the show in other areas so much with other characters. So I'm disappointed that they didn't have a smart ending with him as far as that's concerned. So they're going deeper, like I mentioned earlier, but as a missed opportunity, it didn't stick the landing with me. The deep storyline limits the quality. Also, A-Train, he has a certain storyline this season. I feel like they didn't go deep enough with that. It's about the consequences of what happens to him at the end of season 1. Getting a heart attack. That right there, just alone, could have been so much interest. There's so much good ideas that came from that. What if they did something about him, the kind of physical therapy he had to go through, someone like him, things that you would think they would explore. At least it feels like they're hinting at that, like at the start of the season when you see him back in his suit. But they don't really go anywhere with it, in my opinion, and I feel like they kind of flopped with him. So that's another one that felt like a missed opportunity. And then lastly, apart from that, oh right, yeah, Homelander. That's maybe the biggest missed opportunity in this season. I don't feel like there's a strong enough reason. There's no real Homelander deterrent, in my opinion. The writers haven't given me a strong enough reason to make me believe that Homelander just eventually wouldn't go apeshit and destroy everything, go full injustice. The last episode is a couple episodes back, maybe like episode 4 and 5, middle of the season, and then other like smaller things here and there in between all those episodes, where I think to myself, wait, what's truly stopping Homelander from just, again, going full injustice Superman, killing everyone, full Stalin dictator, no holds bar? They tried to justify it in the middle of the season with a moment he has in his mind where he's like, oh, if I do that, people won't think of me the same way anymore. There's another situation where it reinforced that idea, but that idea just isn't strong enough to me, in my opinion. I think they have to come up with a strong reason for why he wouldn't just lose it and kill everyone. Because as I mentioned before, he's a sociopath. Remember, his idea of love, people loving him, people caring for him, is not the same ideal as an emotionally healthy person, as a mentally healthy person. He has warped ideas of those concepts, love and empathy. So the idea of someone like that, with the kind of power that he has taken over the world, isn't an absurd concept. It does seem like a natural place for him to go. Because dictators are like that. In their minds, oppression is love. People saluting for Stalin or a North Korean dictator, thinking of him as a god. In their minds, that's love. I was watching something with my dad on the news recently about I think it's Kim Jong-un. I forget. The current North Korean leader was at some march recently, and he announced, oh, his economic plans are a failure. And the tears people in the audience watching him at this march, I don't know if it was real or like manufactured. There's probably people out there that have that Stockholm syndrome where they're so in love with a monster. Why couldn't Homelander be someone like that? I just don't feel like they have a solid reason. And eventually, it could go like the way that Stranger Things has gone, that Game of Thrones went in some of its final seasons, where it just seems like excuses rather than solid reasoning to not go into certain directions, to not hold back from going in certain directions. And Homelander's that big example for me of something like that. But guys, that's all of my thoughts on The Boys Season 2. I liked it more than I didn't like it. Like I said, I thought there were missed opportunities here and there. But I do feel like it went deeper into this world and to how the inner workings of this world. Tell me what you think down below. Are you excited for season 3? I am, definitely. Did you like this more than season 1? Did you dislike this more than season 1? Tell me all your thoughts down below. Press that thumbs up button and press that subscribe button. Other than that, I'm out. Signing off. Salute.